December 21st, 1992. The morning is cold in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Christy Mirack is 25 years old. She has been in her new apartment for exactly 1 day. She never makes it to work. By the time her colleagues at the elementary school begin to worry, by the time someone drives to check on her, Christy is already dead, beaten, strangled, left in her own home according to documented accounts before her first full day in that apartment had even begun. The investigation that follows will consume thousands of hours. It will clear dozens of suspects. It will produce DNA evidence that sits in a database, untouched, unmatched, for 26 years. And then in 2018, a relative of a man named Raymond Carroll uploads their genetic profile to a public website. Everything changes. This is how they found him. Christy Ann Mirack grew up in Lancaster County. She was, by every account, exactly the kind of person who belonged in a classroom. Patient, warm, the type of teacher young children remembered decades later. She taught at Rohrerstown Elementary School, working with first and second graders, the ones who still wrote their letters backwards and needed help tying their shoes. December 1992 was supposed to be the start of something new. Christy had just moved into an apartment on Lampeter Road. She was settling in, making it hers. The school year was winding toward Christmas break, and she had plans, family, friends, a life that was just beginning to take the shape she wanted. On the morning of December 21st, Christy did not arrive at school. This was unusual. Christy Mirack was not the type to simply not show up. When calls to her apartment went unanswered, concern grew quickly. A colleague drove to her address to check on her. What they found ended the search for Christy Mirack and began a very different kind of search entirely. According to investigators, Christy had been attacked violently. She had been beaten with a heavy object. She had been strangled. The assault had happened inside her apartment, the place she had occupied for barely 24 hours. There was no sign of forced entry, nothing to suggest a random break-in gone wrong. Someone had come to that apartment, someone Christy may have let in herself. The Lancaster County District Attorney's Office launched an immediate investigation. Detectives fanned out across the area, interviewing neighbors, acquaintances, anyone who might have seen something on the morning of December 21st. They built timelines. They collected physical evidence. They took samples. Among that evidence was biological material recovered from the crime scene. DNA, the genetic fingerprint of whoever had attacked Christy Mirack in her own home. In 1992, DNA technology was still in its relative infancy. Databases existed, but they were small. The sample from Christy's apartment was analyzed, cataloged, entered into the system. It matched no one. Detectives worked the case hard in those early months. They looked at neighbors. They looked at former boyfriends. They looked at anyone with a connection to Christy's life, her work, her routines. One by one, suspects were interviewed, investigated, and ultimately cleared. The DNA didn't match. The alibis held. The leads dried up. By 1993, the Christy Mirack case had gone cold. A cold case is a particular kind of failure. It does not mean the investigation is over. It means the active leads have been exhausted. The file sits, the evidence waits. The family lives in a permanent state of suspended grief, unable to move forward, unable to stop looking back. For Christy's family, that limbo lasted more than 2 decades. The years passed. DNA technology evolved. The combined DNA index system, known as CODIS, expanded dramatically through the 1990s and 2000s. Violent offenders were added to the database by the thousands, then the millions. Every few years, Lancaster County detectives would run the sample from the Mirack case again, hoping for a hit. Nothing. The man who killed Christy Mirack was not in the system. He had never been arrested for a qualifying offense. His DNA sat on no government database anywhere, but in 2018, the rules of the game changed completely. Genetic genealogy had existed for years as a hobby. People uploaded their DNA to websites like GED Match, hoping to find distant relatives, to fill in the gaps in their family trees, to discover where their ancestors had come from. What most of them didn't realize was that they were also creating something else, a searchable database of genetic information, accessible to law enforcement in ways that traditional databases were not. In April 2018, investigators in California used genetic genealogy to identify the Golden State Killer, a man who had evaded capture for 40 years. The technique was simple in concept, staggering in implication. You didn't need the suspect's DNA in a database. You just needed a relative, a third cousin, a distant connection, someone who had uploaded their profile to a public site. From there, you could build a family tree, and from the family tree, you could narrow down suspects to a handful of people, sometimes just one. Lancaster County investigators had been watching the Golden State Killer case. They had a 26-year-old sample sitting in evidence. They had a victim's family that had never stopped asking questions. They decided to try. The DNA from Christy Mirack's apartment was uploaded to a genetic genealogy database. The search began, and the results came back with a cluster of matches, distant relatives of whoever had left that sample behind. Investigators began building a family tree. They traced lineages backward and forward, mapping connections across generations. Slowly, the tree narrowed. Branches were eliminated, paths converged. At the end of those paths was a man named Raymond Rowe. In 1992, Raymond Rowe was approximately 32 years old. He lived in Lancaster County. He was a student at Pequea Elementary School during a period when Christy Mirack reportedly taught there. A connection, a proximity, a possible explanation for how he might have known her, or known of her. By 2018, Raymond Rowe had built a life for himself. He was known locally as DJ Freeze, a disc jockey who worked parties, weddings, community events. He was a familiar face, a friendly presence. No one who knew him suspected he might be connected to a 26-year-old murder. But the DNA said otherwise. Investigators needed to confirm the genealogical match. They needed Raymond Rowe's actual genetic material, not just the inferred connection from his family tree. They began surveillance. On a day when Rowe was working a public event, investigators collected a discarded item, a water bottle, according to some reports. Something Rowe had touched and thrown away, leaving his DNA behind. The sample was tested. It matched the evidence from Christy Mirack's apartment. On October 3, 2018, Raymond Rowe was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and related offenses. He was 57 years old. Christy Mirack had been dead for nearly 26 years. After his arrest, faced with the genetic evidence, Raymond Rowe confessed. The details of what he told investigators have not been fully released. What is known is this: the DNA from his parents was later tested and confirmed the familial match to the crime scene sample. The science was unimpeachable. The connection was absolute. Raymond Rowe pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Christy Mirack was 25 years old when she died. She had been a teacher for only a few years. She had just moved into a new apartment. She had a family who loved her, students who remembered her, a future that was stolen in a single morning. For 26 years, her killer walked free. He built a career. He attended community events. He smiled for photographs. He lived the life that Christy never got to live. And then a stranger, someone Rowe had never met, uploaded their DNA to a genealogy website, a hobby project, a curiosity about ancestry. That upload created a thread. Investigators pulled it, and the whole thing unraveled. The Christy Mirack case is now cited as one of the landmark uses of genetic genealogy in criminal investigation. It demonstrated that no case is truly cold anymore, not as long as the evidence survives and the science keeps advancing. Christy's family finally has answers. Her students, now adults themselves, finally know what happened to the teacher who shaped their earliest memories. And Raymond Rowe will spend the rest of his life in a cell, undone by the very thing he thought would never betray him, his own blood. If you want to go deeper on cases that were never fully closed, subscribe. A new file opens every week,